My name is Kalonde Malama, and I'll be presenting to you some of the work I do with female sex workers in Zambia. Before then, just a little bit about myself. I'm a proud Zambian, born and raised, and after completing my master's in public health, I joined the Zambia Emory HIV Research Project, where I worked for 3 years managing HIV prevention programs for heterosexual couples. Towards the end of my time there, I was offered the opportunity to analyze data from a female sex worker cohort, which I accepted, and eventually I found funding, which led me to Aix-Marseille University in France, where I'm currently in the second year of my PhD program. Moving on to a bit more detail about what I do. So I mentioned female sex workers. I'm doing a secondary data analysis of a 5-year cohort of 555 female sex workers. This cohort ran from 2012 till 2017, and what I'm trying to do specifically is create an HIV risk profile for Zambian female sex workers. The reason why I'm doing this work is because even though we know that female sex workers have a high risk for HIV acquisition, we still don't know in Zambia which female sex workers have a higher risk in relation to their counterparts. So developing an HIV risk profile for female sex workers could help better target high-risk female sex workers for inclusion in PrEP trials. And in the context of Zambia, where PrEP is currently still in its infancy, PrEP rollout is still in its infancy, this could have important implications. So the risk factors I'm looking at specifically are inconsistent condom use, alcohol use, particularly before sexual encounters, as well as being lost to follow-up, and my poster is actually on that topic. I'll be presenting it tomorrow at 3 p.m. You're all welcome to come through. I forgot to put the number, it's poster number 256. And finally, suffering violence, which is what I presented on at the AIDS conference last year in Amsterdam. So moving on to AIDS 2018, just to give you a bit of context, Zambia is a country with a generalized HIV epidemic, and its prevalence of 11.5% is, I think, 7th highest in the world. And among female sex workers, certain estimates place that as high as 56%. And another generalized epidemic in Zambia is that of physical violence against women, which stands at 43%. So in this context, female sex workers are prone to violence from their male clients, and the literature tells us that when threatened with violence, a female sex worker is less able to negotiate condom use, and a client during a forced sexual act is less likely to use a condom. So on this backdrop, we designed a cross-sectional study to determine the prevalence and correlates of client-initiated physical violence against female sex workers. So when we asked female sex workers whether they had ever been physically struck or beaten by any of their male clients, 39% of them responded that they had. And the correlates of this violence were having sex in the client's home, practicing sex work in the capital city of Lusaka versus the smaller Copperbelt city of Ndola, recruiting clients from the street, having a forced sexual debut, and having a high client volume. So our results told us that the sexual environment, sexual history, and sexual behavior are all important factors, risk factors for violence against female sex workers in Zambia. And based on these findings, we recommend that policy makers sanction safe and indoor working spaces for female sex workers, and that violence prevention interventions target not only female sex workers to reduce their risk of facing violence, but also target the male clients themselves, more importantly, to redress the existing gender norms that allow violence to continue against women in this context. And just to finish up, I know we'll speak more about tech later on, I wanted to give the example of a successful violence prevention app. It's called Circle of Six, and it was implemented among female college students in the USA and has since been expanded to over 35 countries and has over 300,000 users. Circle of Six works by having the user, usually a woman, alert members of her, trusted members of her network to an impending threat of violence. It could be from an intimate partner or any other individual. The reason I talk about this is because I think there's potential to adapt such a mobile intervention in the sub-Saharan African context, specifically for female sex workers, to protect them from male client-initiated violence. And on that note, I'd like to thank all the study participants, all collaborating partners, and last but not least, the Joep Lange Institute for giving me the opportunity to present here today. Thank you.